Good morning, everyone. It's about 11 o'clock on a Labor Day weekend, and as promised, I'm doing this worship from a different location today. There won't be any music. We'll be singing a cappella, but we are here, and I just wanted you to be able to experience this morning. I'm praying that we won't have any interruptions, but it's a much busier morning over here than I expected. Probably because the students can't party all night on Saturday anymore, so they're actually wide awake. So if you see some folks walking by, you'll know why. We are in the courtyard here of the O'Kelly Monument, the James O'Kelly Monument. I'm going to speak about that in a few minutes. The building in the back is the Alamance Building. It was the first building built after the Great Fire on the Elon campus, and so because of that, this Alamance building represents something very special. As many of you may know, this was called the Alamance Building because most of the people from Alamance County were the ones to give us funding to help this building come out of the ground, out of the ashes of the fire. Hence, in the year 2000, when Elon became a university, they decided to call themselves the Phoenix. So today we are going to be worshiping here, and I'm going to tell you why in just a few moments. But James O'Kelly was one of the founders of the Christian church. James O'Kelly was one of the forerunners of one of the four denominations that we have that make up the United Church of Christ. And this was the Christian church when Elon University started. And it actually started 130 years ago today. So one of the reasons I wanted to be here today was to be able to demonstrate a little bit of something about our celebration. I'm going to tell you why things started today in just a few moments as well. Have a couple of announcements just before we begin. Many of you read in the newsletter that we were going to attempt to have within this 90-day period a chance for you to gather in small groups. Maybe 3 to 5 people, maybe as many as 7, but way less than 10 to keep up with the governor's orders. You can do it in a lot of different ways. We can do it via telephone conference. We could do it in person if we're careful. We are now open to that. And or the other thing is that we could do a Zoom meeting. So, but we need your names. We need to know who'd be willing to come up and make that. If you might want to form your own group, and you may have already formed it, and you may want to just report to us that that group has started to meet. And for the next 90 days, we just want to continue to touch base with each other and relate to one another. Also, next week, we have a very special Sunday planned. It is called Rally to Grow. And in the past, what we would do when we celebrate our Sunday school and our Christian education is that we would have a breakfast. Obviously, we can't do that this year, so I'm going to invite you to attend, if you haven't had a chance to, attend one of the 2 classes, the adult classes, that are on Zoom. The Seekers class meets at 9:30 on Sunday morning, and my class, the Senior Pastor's Bible Study, meets at 4:30 p.m. on Mondays. So both are Zoom meetings, and we will make sure that you will get an invitation if you'd like to be a guest. And we're going to be talking more about what it means to grow in Christian education and grow as a church next week. Also, on Tuesday, there will be a blood drive held in our Community Life Center. This is the second that we have had since the coronavirus. We opened it up because they were losing other venues, and they are looking for a minimum of 30 donors, and they are doing everything in a very good and distanced way. Please be watching or look at some of the past joys and concerns if you have some interest in wanting to sign up and be a part of that. Well, let us now say and prepare our worship now. This is going to be hopefully a little bit shorter service today because the lawnmowers are going to be starting up in just a very little bit. We're now joining in our call to worship. As we gather here in your name, O Christ, you are already among us. Keep us open to your presence in us and around us, that we may grow closer to you. Let us worship. And you know, everyone always talks about the kumbaya moment. Well, here it is. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. O Lord, kumbaya. Someone's singing, Lord, kumbaya. Someone's singing, Lord, kumbaya. Someone's singing, Lord, kumbaya. O Lord, kumbaya. Someone's crying, Lord, kumbaya. Someone's crying, Lord, kumbaya. Someone's crying, Lord, kumbaya. Oh, Lord, kumbaya. Someone's praying, Lord, kumbaya. Someone's praying, Lord, kumbaya. Someone's praying, Lord, kumbaya. Oh, Lord, kumbaya. Well, thank you for the notes. I had no idea I was sideways. So I'm going to bring us upright so that we can see each other. The only problem is that I don't know my camera will be able to be held like it was before. So we're going to just make do today, okay? So I want you to be able to see the O'Kelly sign. And since I've got you on here, I'm going to also show you this sign right here. So let's be in prayer for a prayer of confession. Gracious God, too often we take your presence for granted. When you call us to leave the situations that constrain us, we are too complacent to hear your voice and too timid to leave what is familiar. Make us ready to go where you lead us. Amen. And hear these words of grace. God's grace is abundant. God's love is never-ending. As children of God, receive forgiveness and blessing through Jesus the Christ. It's going to be a little bit trickier right now without being able to use a stand, so I apologize. But the first reading today comes from Romans. And as we've been reading through, it comes from the 13th chapter, and we'll be reading verses 8 through, I believe, 14, yes. Hear these words. Owe no one anything except to love one another. For the one who loves one another has fulfilled the law. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word, love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. Besides this, you know what time it is, how it is now the moment for you to wake from sleep. For salvation is nearer to us now than when we became believers. The night is far gone, the day is near. Let us then lay aside the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us live honorably as in the day, not in reveling or drunkenness, not in debauchery and licentiousness, not in quarreling and jealousy. Instead, put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. Through this scripture, God is still speaking, and we are listening. Okay, kids, I want you, if you can come to the screen, I want you to see something that we've had for a while at the church, and I wanted to show it to you now. Because I'm going to tell you the story of why this is such an important day. On the very first Sunday in September, in 1890, now that was a long time ago, right? It was exactly 130 years ago. There were students, or prospective students, who were coming to Elon. It was then called Elon College. And Elon College, they came to sign up for classes. They actually signed up for classes on this weekend. And then they had a big picnic together. In fact, if you were here right now around this time, if there was no COVID, you would be seeing those kinds of things happening. Obviously, everything's a little different now. And so what happened in that time was that they actually were going to start classes the next day. And as a result, that afternoon, the first thing they did was to go into the building that would have been standing right behind me. And it was called the Old Main, or it was called the Main Building. And on the third floor of that building was a chapel. And in that chapel, they had their first worship service. Now, a lot of people don't count that with our anniversaries, because we usually think of 1889 and 1891 as the beginnings of both the college and then the church. But we actually started by worshiping together in this place 130 years ago. It was because of a man like James O'Kelly, who believed that we needed to be free to believe what we wanted, to understand that we learn and grow together. And in helping to start the Christian church, they created these Cardinal Principles, kids. These are the basic rules. And in one of them it says that our personal judgment, in other words, how we think and how we grow, is going to be extremely important. And so what ended up happening was this school became an end result of that. In fact, they have some Latin words that they use. They call it numen lumen, because they actually built the values of this college from the church. And a lot of people don't remember that. We think of universities as just places of learning, but it's because they cared. Now, I'm going to probably go off screen for just a second here, because I have something I want to show you here. It doesn't fit real well, but I wanted to show you this wonderful hat. The first president, William S. Long, wore this hat when he was ready to make a speech here in 1908. He was the very first president and minister of the church that we call Elon Community Church. And so this hat is a commemoration. I mean, this is actually his hat. It was a hat that was held and for many, many years of a woman from Graham. And so today I'm just trying to put this hat on. I don't think this would have been my size, but I wanted you to see it. And I wanted to tip the hat to you today, and to know that in this moment, this is a very important place. Now, this monument, James O'Kelly, came much later. In fact, this used to be a parking lot. There used to be a road up to that front door. Now it's a beautiful garden, and there's lots of great things that we can see because the people cared. And one of the things that I want you to understand is that our faith helps us to grow. And the love that we have for one another creates a richness that so many people just don't always celebrate. So kids, let's have a prayer about that. Dear God, thank you for allowing us to be here on this day. And I pray that you will help us to remember, because as we remember what's important. And in remembering this 130 years ago, this beginning of this college and the first worship of our church, I pray, oh God, that you will enrich us for another 130 years. Thank you for the children here who continue to be our future and continue to help us to grow. And as we learn and grow, God, be with us in Jesus' name. And we all said, Amen. I wish I had Smarties for you kids. I wish I could throw them through the Facebook Live. But it's smart to be here, and it's smart to be a part of this day. Now, again, I apologize because I'm having to hold the camera. I have to turn in my scripture. I have it all ready to go, but it doesn't always happen real easy when I'm having to hold it. I'm now going to be reading from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 18, verses 15 through 20. Listen now to these words. If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among you. Wow. 2 interesting scriptures today. Let's be in prayer. And now, Lord, let the words of my mouth and meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, it is a privilege to be able to be here and to understand the connection between the church and the college, of how this college started 130 years ago on this particular weekend. It may not have been this exact day, but this is the time in which students came, and as they claim, as we see in George Troxer's wonderful history, they came and matriculated on this day. And what that meant was they signed up for classes and they got ready. They had picnics on the lawn as their parents and families were here with them as they got ready to come to this school. And on that afternoon, they paused for a worship service, because the dream of this school was not to have its own insular kind of religious activity, but they felt that this would be a church for the community around us. And so, continuing in the way of the Christian church, we found this opportunity, even in 1890, to be able to serve this greater community. Once known as Mill Point, then it was renamed Elon College when the college came to be. And James O'Kelly was a later addition, but it was because of the value of who he was and what it meant to start this church. Now, we've raised a lot of these names, and yes, it has been a history lesson today. But this is not what the sermon is about. What it really is about is understanding that we, in remembering, also remember that we have always been given, as a people of faith, a set of laws. A set of laws that we found, that what we call the Old Testament, that allows us to have relationship with one another, allows us to find ways to be able to be with one another in a peaceful way. Yet somehow those laws never seemed to be completely adequate. And in the coming of Christ, as the Apostle Paul will say in Romans, we find the fulfillment of the law in the simple notion of love. That's quite a statement to make. It's kind of hard to talk about that, because we think of love as just this sweet little thing that people will utilize, and say, oh, well, if you just love each other, everything will be fine, and all we need is love. And we hear all these words throughout the years, and most people hear it but don't take it seriously. They think of it only in terms of sentimentality. We still need rules. We still need regulations. We still need all kinds of ways of being able to express how we will be in relationship with one another. Now, Matthew, of course, in his gospel, speaks about what this is all about. How do we care for one another? How do we relate to one another? Because one of the dangers and one of the things that we have seen is that when we look to the laws or we look to the rules, we try to find ways in which someone is right and someone is wrong. What is the sign of being wrong? What does it mean when someone actually breaks a law of relationship? How can we break laws of relationship? Well, it's when we hurt one another, when we dehumanize one another, when we treat each other as less than human, when we forget that each of us has equal value. Now, that's expressed in so many different laws. That's expressed in so many different ways. Just in the way we disrespect one another, or if you were to steal from someone or take something away from someone, it's a form of disrespect. It's a form of depriving someone else of something that you yourself seem to want to have. And oftentimes it's about greed, or it's about some kind of ability to be at the top of the hill, and we find ourselves in breaking relationships where one must be stronger than the other, as opposed to seeing each other in a way of relating. I hope you see what I'm doing here. I'm coming back to love in all of this. The aspect of loving one's neighbor as oneself is the true reconciliation of power. It's the reconciliation of relationship. It's the way that we are with one another in a way that allows us to not only grow together, but to truly thrive together. In terms of community, which is really what this is about. You know, we can talk about love as an individual, loving oneself, as it says to love yourself. But it is also important to understand that's in a relationship with how we treat one another, how we care for one another. And so we need to focus on that today. This is also Labor Day weekend for us. This is supposed to be a rest from our labors. Hence, one of the reasons I was able for the first time to give our staff the weekend off and let them also celebrate a little bit of Labor Day weekend. We know that not everyone gets to do that. Hence, we've got lawn people here ready to go as soon as I'm done with this service, because they sometimes have to work to keep going. And we know that people are some working 7 days a week. We know that our Labor Day today has become almost more symbolic, unfortunately. But the labors that we are truly a part of, the work that we are to be involved in as people of faith, is the work of love. And I want you to understand some of the dynamics of that work. Work is ongoing. It's not a one-time deal. It's something that we do daily. It's something that we take care of. It's something that we think about is a part of our lives when we are working, when we are busy. And the work of love is exactly the same. The work of love was this college coming together by the pennies and dollars of others who came to this place and allowed their children now to grow and become pastors and become teachers, ultimately to become now engineers, accountants, scientists, mathematicians, social workers, communication experts. We have so much in this, so much richness in this college, in this university that has grown and worked over the years to take that lumen value, that understanding that we have the right to personal judgment. We have the right to come together and to learn together, but that at the end of the day, our personal conscience means something. And in that conscience of thought, in that conscience, in that right that we have to give of ourselves, even a place like this has grown to an incredible place. Well, our love can continue to grow too. And we in the church have got to continue to be challenged to be able to feel and understand that love. That kind of love is not something that can be done one at a time, one day only. It can't just be declared and then put away. It is something that we have to face together over and over again. And when we see dehumanization, when we see breaks in relationship, we want to follow these rules that we see in Matthew today. It seems like a very nice way of doing it. However, we don't live in a church that looks like that anymore. We actually live in a very consumer-led church where people decide on the product that we share. And so there is a marketplace of churches out there. So if someone disagrees with you, they don't tell you about it. They go to another church. And you know, one of the things that we have forgotten is that when we go to our own camps, when we go to our own places and we stop talking, when we stop relating, it only creates the absence of love. This is our Christian call, friends. As we now go into this 131st year of life. Remember, some of you may remember we did the 125th anniversary, and I was so thankful that we did it, as we had some folks that we've lost since then who were able to give us some insight into the first 125 years of the church and of this college. Now we have a future, and that future is calling us to acts of love, acts of reconciliation, acts of looking for the justice and mercy, the transforming spirit of love that Paul speaks about as he begins this whole section in chapter 12. And as he's taken all of the things that we've spoken about and now is putting it into practices, we too need to practice love. And how we will practice that love is so vital. So on this special day, on this day of work and celebrating work, we know we have work to do. I hope and pray that we will just allow this time to be a time of growth. And we can't wait until next week when we start to talk about that growth. We can't let this coronavirus get in our way. This is a time in which to be the church like none other. I pray that each of you will focus on that this week, will see in your own minds and your own hearts what that means. The sad truth is that even though we celebrate William Long, we know that there has been a history even here in this college and in this town when we weren't always loving, when we separated people, when we allowed people to be separated by the color of their skin. And now it is time for us to reconcile. It is time for us to move forward. It is time for us to love. In celebration and in challenge, I pray you will be with us now, God. Amen. As we go into this time of joys and concerns, many of you know about our friend Gary. He was put to rest yesterday with military honors at the cemetery yesterday in a private ceremony. But we will have a time to be able to share that at a later time. He was so proud of his Air Force service during the Vietnam War. He stayed here in the United States, but he was serving. He ended up as a sergeant, and we all knew him as a jolly guy who gave us a lot and wanted to share a lot of love. One of the things that he did was he loved the children of the church. And one of the things that Hunt shared was that when he was with their child, was that he said to him, "Thank you for letting me spend time with your daughter. There's a lot of people who are afraid of me because I'm gay and think I'm not allowed to be around children." Nearly broke Hunt's heart, but it reminded us of how important it is to be the church and to be people of love. Also, we've had a chance to meet electronically Jackie, our friend Jackie's nephew. And I know some of you have shared some information. We're going to continue to share all the information that you've given to us through Facebook Live with him. And there will be a service, but it will be at another time. We know that there are many who are still in the hospital and having situations where they need to be cared for. I'll even just say this openly because I can, and that is that Bev was tried to get away to go see her mom this weekend, and her mom ended up in the hospital. So please hold her mom in your prayers, as well as you hold Bev. And so she kind of feels glad that she was able to be there with her, but we're hoping that everything will resolve itself soon. We know that there are other concerns, other people's names, other persons in our congregation, in our lives. Let's now hold them in prayer as we come to God in prayer. Dear God, help us to see and to know that with you all things are possible. Help us to know that the way that happens is through the acts of love. We thank you for 130 years in this college and in our church. We thank you for the ability to understand that what we do matters and how we do it matters as well. We pray, O God, that you will be with us in all of your ways. We pray that love will shape how we relate to one another and that we will learn to reconcile in ways that we still have yet to do. I pray that you will be with those who we have named, those who are on the joys and concerns, those who are in our hearts even now, as we pause for this moment of prayer. We lift these things in the name and love of Jesus Christ, who taught us to pray when he said, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. We're not going to have a break for offering today. I just pray that you will give, and you will give in the many ways that you can, online, by mail, or you can even come in person if you need to drop off an envelope. Your response from the last week when we talked about the oncoming deficit that we're going to be having to deal with has been amazing. We want to continue to ask, and you'll see a letter that talks about how we anticipate this happening. My hope is, and my prayer is that we'll have a miracle of a surplus this year so that we can go into 2021 with some strength, because we know 2021 is going to be a very tough year. But we can do this together. One of the things that we know is that when we work together, when we share in love together, miracles do happen. Let's just say a quick prayer. Dear God, thank you. Thank you for our ability to give of ourselves. Thank you for the ability to see beyond all that we can do negatively and become those positive forces in the world. A force of love, a force of light. And in that light, let us illuminate this world. For like the Newman Lumen of Elon University, let us enrich and grow each life together. Amen. Well, I've got one more chance to sing, and I wanted to share this song because there was something about the ties that we have, not only with the college, but there's ties that we have with each other that we have to keep celebrating. I've been telling several people, I'm just hopping on the phone now. I'm just starting to call as many people as I can. I just want to start talking to you. And some of you have been so gracious to let me have prayers with you on the phone. It feels a little odd at first, but I'm getting used to it now. And I just hope you know that we are together in this. So let's sing together, Blessed be the tie that binds. Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love, the sharing of a common life is like to that above. Before our God we come, and pour our ardent prayers. Our fears, our hopes, our aims are one, our comforts and our cares. When we are called apart, it gives us inward pain, but we shall still be joined in heart and hope to meet again. Well, I have to say I'm thankful that there was no wind, and I want to say a great Thanksgiving to the landscaping crew for being nice. They said nothing was scheduled. Yep, that's exactly right. I just kind of snuck on campus and did this and asked for forgiveness and not for permission. And they were wonderful. Well, listen, friends, we have much to do. Thank you for being here. And now go in the peace and love of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace, friends, and have a great, as best you can, Labor Day weekend. Bye-bye.